What if the real war never ended with the season finale? What if everything that happened was only Mariano's opening move? Carter is missing, Rob Will is dead, and the Dutton Ranch has become a place filled with silence instead of safety. Beth and Rip are no longer fighting to protect land or cattle. This time, they are fighting to save the person who means the most to them before Mariano makes his next move. But the deeper they search, the more they realize this kidnapping was planned long before anyone fired a single shot. And if Mariano truly stays 3 steps ahead, then Carter may already be trapped in a game that Beth and Rip cannot win. Let's break down what could happen in Dutton Ranch Season 2, Episode 1. Season 2, Episode 1 begins only hours after the shocking events of the finale. The dust has finally settled after the gunfire, but the pain left behind is only beginning. The Dutton Ranch has never felt this quiet before. The place that was once filled with hard work, family arguments, and hope now feels completely different. Every corner of the ranch reminds Beth and Rip that Carter is gone. His horse remains in the stable. His boots are still sitting outside the bunkhouse. Everything is exactly where he left it, making his absence even harder to accept. I believe this opening immediately changes the tone of the series. Season 1 focused heavily on the battle between 2 powerful ranching families. There were business deals, betrayals, hidden drug operations, and constant power struggles. But Season 2 starts from a much more personal place. This is no longer about money or land. It is about family. Carter is not simply someone Beth and Rip care about. He has become the heart of their future, and Mariano understands that better than anyone else. Instead of reacting with anger like Rob Will often did, Mariano plays a much smarter game. He knows hurting Carter hurts Beth and Rip more than destroying any ranch ever could. That is exactly why Carter disappeared instead of becoming another victim during the attack. Mariano wants Beth and Rip alive. He wants them desperate. He wants every decision they make to come from emotion instead of logic. I think Beth realizes this before anyone else. She walks through the ranch unable to focus on anything except Carter. Every memory reminds her of how much he has changed since arriving at the ranch. Carter came into their lives as a troubled teenager searching for a place where he belonged. Over time, he became something much bigger. Without anyone saying it directly, Beth slowly accepted him as family. Now the fear of losing him becomes almost unbearable. Rip handles the situation very differently. Instead of showing emotion, he becomes quieter than ever. Anyone who knows Rip understands that silence is often far more dangerous than anger. When Rip stops talking, it usually means he has already made up his mind. He is no longer thinking about negotiations or compromises. His only goal is bringing Carter home, no matter what it costs. I believe the episode spends time showing Rip carefully examining every piece of evidence left behind after the attack. He studies tire tracks leading away from the ranch. He notices small details everyone else missed. A broken chain, fresh boot prints, a piece of rope left behind near the gate. Rip knows Mariano is intelligent, but even the smartest criminals leave something behind. Meanwhile, Beth refuses to sit still. She constantly asks herself whether there was something she could have done differently. Could she have protected Carter? Could she have seen Mariano's plan earlier? These questions begin eating away at her confidence, creating an emotional struggle that makes this premiere much stronger than a simple rescue story. I also think the ranch workers feel the emotional impact of Carter's disappearance. Everyone remembers how much Carter matured during Season 1. They watched him make mistakes, learn difficult lessons, and slowly earn Rip's respect. Now, every ranch hand understands that bringing Carter home is more important than any job waiting to be finished. As news spreads, people begin realizing something much larger is happening. Rob Will may be gone, but the conflict is far from over. In many ways, it has only become more dangerous. Rob often acted out of pride and emotion, making reckless decisions that eventually led to his downfall. Mariano is nothing like that. He remains calm even while creating chaos around him. That makes him far more unpredictable because nobody knows exactly what he is planning next. I believe Mariano's first communication with Beth and Rip happens much sooner than expected. It is not a desperate demand for money or power. Instead, it is a simple message designed to frighten them even more. Something that proves Carter is alive, while also making it clear that Mariano controls every second of what happens next. The message contains no anger, no threats shouted in frustration, only confidence. Mariano wants them to understand that every move from this point forward belongs to him. That realization changes everything. Beth finally understands they are not chasing an ordinary criminal. They are chasing someone who prepared this operation long before Rob Will died. Carter's kidnapping was never an accident created during the attack. It was always part of Mariano's larger strategy. I think this discovery becomes the emotional turning point of the premiere. Instead of hoping Carter might escape on his own, Beth and Rip realize they are facing a carefully organized enemy with resources, loyal men, and multiple backup plans. Every hour they waste gives Mariano another opportunity to disappear. As the first day continues, Rip quietly begins contacting people he trusts the most. These are individuals who owe him favors and understand the seriousness of the situation without asking unnecessary questions. Beth notices exactly what Rip is doing. She knows this is the same preparation he makes before every dangerous confrontation. That thought alone tells her how serious the situation has become. The episode closes this opening chapter with one heartbreaking realization. Carter is no longer just missing. He has become the center of a war that will decide the future of every family connected to the Dutton Ranch. Beth refuses to lose another person she loves, while Rip prepares himself for a fight unlike anything he has faced before. Neither of them knows where Carter is being held, but both understand one terrifying truth. Mariano is expecting them to come after him, and that means the real battle has only just begun. The second part of episode 1 begins with one uncomfortable truth becoming impossible to ignore. Beth and Rip are searching everywhere for Carter, but Mariano already expected every move they would make. I believe this is what makes him such a dangerous enemy. He does not react after something happens. He plans everything long before anyone else even realizes there is a game being played. Back at the Dutton Ranch, the pressure continues to build. Every hour without news makes the situation more painful. Beth refuses to leave the ranch office because she believes the next phone call could finally reveal where Carter is. She barely eats, barely sleeps, and spends every minute thinking about Carter. Although she tries to stay strong in front of everyone else, it becomes obvious that she is slowly reaching her breaking point. Rip notices the change immediately, but instead of trying to comfort Beth with words, he focuses on action. He understands that promises mean nothing unless Carter is brought home safely. That has always been Rip's way. When everyone else is talking, he is already planning his next move. I think Rip begins putting together a small group of people he trusts completely. These are not ordinary ranch hands. They are people who have faced dangerous situations before and know how to stay calm under pressure. Rip understands that bringing too many people into the search only increases the chances of someone making a mistake. Every decision now must be careful because Mariano is likely watching from somewhere nearby. Meanwhile, I believe the episode finally gives us our first glimpse of Carter after his kidnapping. The writers probably avoid showing exactly where he is being held, but they reveal enough to increase the tension. Carter wakes up in an unfamiliar building surrounded by armed guards. The room is simple, cold, and heavily secured. There are no windows showing the outside world, making it impossible for him to know where he has been taken. Even in this frightening situation, Carter refuses to panic. Throughout Season 1, he learned one important lesson from Rip. Fear only helps your enemy. I think Carter remembers everything Rip taught him and begins quietly observing his surroundings instead of acting recklessly. He counts the guards. He notices when meals arrive. He listens carefully whenever someone opens the door. Every small detail could become useful later. This shows real character growth. Earlier in the series, Carter often rushed into situations without thinking. Now he understands that surviving requires patience. He knows escaping too early without a real plan could make everything worse. At the same time, Mariano finally appears. Unlike Rob Will, Mariano never needs to raise his voice to make people nervous. His calm personality is what makes him so intimidating. He walks into Carter's room with complete confidence, almost as if he is visiting someone rather than holding them captive. I believe Mariano speaks to Carter in a surprisingly respectful way. He does not threaten him immediately. Instead, he tries to convince Carter that none of this is personal. According to Mariano, every decision has a purpose, and Carter simply happens to be the most valuable piece on the board. These quiet conversations reveal how Mariano thinks. He sees people as tools rather than human beings. Emotions only get in the way of success. Carter refuses to respond the way Mariano expects. Instead of begging for help or showing fear, he remains silent. Mariano quickly realizes that Rip has taught Carter much more than ranch work. He has taught him mental strength. Back at the ranch, another important storyline begins to develop. Oriana continues struggling with the secret she has been carrying since the finale. She knows she is pregnant with Carter's child, but every time she tries to tell someone, the words refuse to come out. Carter is missing, and she cannot bring herself to add another emotional shock while everyone is already suffering. I think there is a quiet moment where Oriana sits alone, holding on to the small piece of hope growing inside her. Instead of feeling joy, she feels fear. She wonders whether Carter will ever know about the baby. She wonders if their future together has already disappeared before it truly began. This internal conflict makes Oriana's storyline much stronger. She is carrying the future of Carter's family while having no idea whether Carter will survive long enough to become a father. Beth eventually notices something is wrong with Oriana. Although Oriana hides her emotions well, Beth has always been able to recognize pain in other people because she carries so much of it herself. I believe Beth asks if everything is all right, but Oriana simply says she is worried about Carter like everyone else. Beth accepts the answer, but something tells her there is more being left unsaid. Meanwhile, Sheriff Wade begins taking the kidnapping much more seriously than anyone expected. A missing teenager, multiple murders, and growing evidence of organized criminal activity force law enforcement to become involved. Wade understands that if Carter is not found quickly, the situation could explode into something far bigger than a family dispute. However, this creates another problem for Beth and Rip. They appreciate Wade's efforts, but they also know official investigations move slowly. Mariano will not wait patiently while search warrants are approved or evidence is processed. Every passing hour increases the chances of Carter being moved somewhere else. Rip quietly tells Beth that they cannot depend entirely on the sheriff. They have to continue searching their own way. Beth agrees immediately because she has already accepted that following every rule may cost Carter his life. Elsewhere, Austin continues becoming one of the most valuable allies in the story. After exposing parts of the smuggling operation during Season 1, Austin understands how Mariano's network works better than almost anyone else. I believe he begins connecting information that others overlook. Certain vehicles seen near the border, familiar names connected to old ranch properties, financial records that suddenly stopped making sense. Piece by piece, Austin starts building a picture of Mariano's operation. None of the clues reveal Carter's exact location, but together they suggest something much bigger. Mariano is not simply hiding Carter. He is using several different safe locations, making it extremely difficult for anyone to track him. This discovery confirms Rip's biggest fear. They are not chasing one man, they are chasing an entire organization. As the episode continues, Rip receives information from one of his trusted contacts. Someone spotted unusual activity near an abandoned property several hours away. The report is far from certain, but it is the strongest lead they have received since Carter disappeared. Beth immediately insists on going with Rip. There is no argument this time. She refuses to stay behind while someone she loves remains in danger. Rip knows trying to stop her would be impossible. The second section ends with Beth and Rip preparing to follow their first real lead. Neither of them knows whether it is a trap or their best chance to find Carter. But one thing has become painfully clear. Mariano wanted them to find this clue. The only question now is whether they are walking toward Carter or directly into Mariano's next move. The third part of Episode 1 raises the tension even further because both sides finally begin making their next move. Beth and Rip are no longer waiting for answers. They have their first possible lead, and although nobody can guarantee it is real, they know they cannot afford to ignore it. Every minute that passes gives Mariano another opportunity to move Carter somewhere new. The longer they wait, the harder this rescue becomes. I believe Rip carefully studies the information Austin helped uncover before making his decision. The abandoned property mentioned by Rip's contact is connected to one of Mariano's old business partners. On paper, the building has been empty for years, but small deliveries have continued arriving there every few weeks. That detail immediately catches Rip's attention. Empty buildings do not need supplies unless someone is secretly using them. Beth wants to leave immediately, but Rip asks everyone to slow down. That surprises the people around him because Rip is usually the first person ready to charge into danger. This time, however, something feels wrong. The lead has appeared too easily. Mariano has spent months planning every step of his operation. It seems unlikely that he would suddenly become careless now. I think Rip quietly says something that changes the mood completely. He tells Beth that if he were Mariano, he would expect them to investigate this location. That means the building could be exactly what they are looking for, or it could be the perfect place to eliminate anyone trying to rescue Carter. Beth understands what Rip means, but she also knows they have no better option. If there is even the smallest chance Carter is inside that building, she refuses to walk away. Meanwhile, Carter continues proving that he is no longer the reckless teenager everyone once worried about. Instead of giving in to fear, he begins paying close attention to every routine inside the building where he is being held. He notices that the guards change shifts at nearly the same time every day. One guard always forgets to lock a small storage room nearby. Another spends several minutes talking on the phone before returning to his post. None of these details seem important by themselves, but Carter remembers something Rip once told him. Big opportunities are built from small mistakes. Instead of looking for one perfect escape route, Carter begins collecting small pieces of information that might eventually create one. I believe the writers use these moments to show just how much Carter has matured. During Season 1, he often let his emotions control him. Now he thinks before acting. He knows surviving today is more important than escaping too early. At one point, Mariano returns to check on Carter. Once again, he remains calm and polite, making the situation even more unsettling. Mariano never insults Carter. He never loses control. Instead, he asks simple questions about Beth and Rip, almost as if he is trying to understand how they think rather than threatening them directly. I think Mariano already knows exactly how Beth and Rip will respond. He expects Beth to follow her emotions while Rip follows logic. His goal is simple: separate those two instincts and they become much easier to defeat. During their conversation, Mariano quietly admits something surprising. He says Carter is valuable because Beth and Rip gave him something he never had before: a family worth protecting. Mariano believes love makes people weak because it forces them to make emotional decisions. Carter disagrees without saying very much. He simply tells Mariano that family is exactly what gives people the strength to survive. That single exchange says everything about the two characters. Mariano believes power comes from control. Carter believes power comes from loyalty. Back at the ranch, another emotional storyline begins developing. Oriana continues hiding her pregnancy, but the pressure is becoming impossible to carry alone. Every conversation about Carter reminds her that she may be carrying the future of the family while having no idea whether Carter will ever return. I think there is a quiet moment between Oriana and Beth where Beth notices how exhausted Oriana looks. Beth assumes the stress of Carter's disappearance is becoming too much for her. She encourages Oriana to rest, promising they will bring Carter home. Those words nearly cause Oriana to reveal everything, but once again she stops herself. She cannot bear the thought of creating another emotional burden while Beth is already carrying so much pain. At the same time, Sheriff Wade continues expanding the official investigation. Officers begin questioning people connected to Mariano's former business operations. Old financial records are reopened. Several abandoned ranch properties are searched. The pressure on Mariano's network slowly increases, but Wade understands he is still behind. Every lead seems to disappear just before law enforcement arrives.